Everything you watch today crossed an ocean through a tube thinner than a garden hose, and somewhere in the world, one of those tubes broke while you were watching it. That is not a rare event. It happens roughly every 3 days. And yet the video you streamed, the call you made, the payment you sent, none of it stuttered because the system was built assuming failure from day one. By the end of this, you will understand exactly how a strand of glass thinner than your finger carries almost the entire internet across an ocean floor, why it keeps breaking, and why that constant breaking is not a flaw in the design, but the entire design philosophy. Let's start with what these cables actually are, because the mental image most people carry, some kind of thick industrial pipe, is wrong. At the core of a transatlantic cable is a bundle of glass fibers, each one about as thick as a human hair. That glass carries pulses of laser light, and that light is the data. Around that hair-thin glass core is layer after layer of protection, steel wires for tensile strength, copper for electrical power, and thick polyethylene insulation. So the finished cable ends up roughly the diameter of a garden hose. But the part that actually does the work, the part carrying your Netflix stream and your bank transaction, is thinner than a strand of your hair. Everything else is just armor protecting that one fragile thread. Here's the part that surprises people once they understand the physics. Light doesn't just travel down that glass forever on its own. Fiber optic cable is extraordinarily pure glass, purer than almost anything else manufactured at scale, engineered so photons of laser light can bounce down its core through total internal reflection with minimal loss. But minimal is not zero. Roughly every 50 to 70 kilometers, the signal has degraded enough that it needs help. So engineers place repeaters, sealed metal cylinders sitting on the ocean floor, each one containing optical amplifiers that boost the light back to strength before it fades into noise. A transatlantic cable might contain over 100 of these repeaters, and every single one is powered by electricity sent down the copper in that same cable, from stations on land thousands of miles apart, feeding a continuous current through the entire length of the line. If that power fails anywhere along the route, the whole segment goes dark. The reason this matters is not the elegance of the engineering, it's what happens when it fails, because it fails constantly. Somewhere in the world, a fishing trawler drags an anchor across the seafloor. A shifting current buries a cable under sediment and then exposes it to abrasion. An earthquake triggers an underwater landslide that snaps a cable like a wet noodle. These are not edge cases. They are the normal operating condition of this system, averaging around 100 cable faults every year, close to one every 3 days somewhere on the planet. And here is the sentence worth sitting with for a second. The internet has never, at any point in its history, depended on a single unbroken cable to function. It was never designed to. That's why global data routing looks nothing like a single cross-ocean line. It looks like a mesh. There are more than 400 submarine cables currently in service, stretching over 1.3 million kilometers combined, enough to wrap around the Earth more than 30 times. Major routes, like the ones connecting the United States to Europe or Japan to the West Coast, are served by dozens of separate cables, owned by different consortiums, landing at different points on the coast so that when one is severed, traffic simply reroutes through another path within milliseconds. Your video call doesn't know or care which physical cable it's traveling through. The Internet's routing protocols were built specifically to treat any single path as expendable. So now here's a question that might seem obvious, but actually isn't. If these breaks happen so often, why hasn't anyone engineered a cable that just doesn't break? The answer is that a break-proof cable would be economically irrational, not technically impossible. You could bury cable deeper, armor it heavier, avoid every shipping lane and fishing ground on Earth, but the cost curve becomes brutal almost immediately. And you'd still lose ships dragging anchors in unexpected places. And you'd still lose sections to landslides in places no engineer predicted. The industry made a different calculation decades ago. Instead of making individual cables invincible, make individual failure irrelevant. Repair ships stationed around the world are on permanent standby, capable of locating a break using signal reflection, hauling the severed ends up from as deep as 8,000 meters, splicing the fiber back together in a floating clean room on the ship's deck, and redeploying it, typically within 1 to 2 weeks. That's not a fast fix, but because the network has redundancy built in, a break rarely means an outage. It just means one of many roads is temporarily closed while traffic uses the others. What matters here is the part almost nobody expects. Wireless doesn't replace any of this. It depends entirely on it. Satellites and cell towers feel like the alternative to physical cables, the wireless option, the modern option. But every cell tower, every Wi-Fi router, every satellite ground station is ultimately plugged into this same undersea fiber network somewhere upstream. Starlink and other satellite constellations carry a tiny fraction of global data because satellites face a hard physics ceiling on bandwidth that fiber simply doesn't have. Glass can carry terabits per second down a single strand. A satellite link cannot compete with that at scale. So the wireless internet you experience on your phone, streaming while on a train, is, within a few hops, riding on the exact same undersea cables as everything else. There is no separate wireless internet. There's one internet, and it's mostly wet. The interesting part is who actually owns these cables now, because it's changed dramatically in the last decade. These lines used to be built and operated primarily by telecom consortiums and national carriers. Dozens of companies pooling money to fund a single route. Today, a huge share of new cable capacity is being funded directly by Google, Meta, Amazon, and Microsoft. Not because they want to be in the shipping and cable laying business, but because their own data centers, spread across continents, need guaranteed capacity moving between them constantly, and leasing space on a consortium cable no longer meets their scale. So they're financing entire cables themselves, choosing landing points, choosing routes, effectively becoming the infrastructure rather than just renting it. That shift matters because it concentrates enormous physical control over global data flow into the hands of a small number of private companies, a fact almost invisible to anyone just using the internet. The reason all of this matters isn't trivia about cable diameters or repeater spacing. It's that almost everything people assume is fragile about the internet, wireless signals, satellite links, cloud storage, actually depends on something almost nobody ever thinks about. A network of glass threads lying on the ocean floor, engineered not to be unbreakable, but to be replaceable, fast and redundant enough that breaking barely matters. The internet survives constant physical destruction every few days, somewhere on Earth, and you never notice because the entire system was built around the assumption that failure is not an exception. It's the baseline it was designed to absorb.